Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Polarize with Molly Dare. I am joined today again. We have the amazing Donna Bowling. I'm so excited to have you back, Donna.
I mean, I feel like I've come home.
Well, there's no one else that I could do this deep dive with because I actually remember the day that we found out. We're talking today about Allison Holker's new book, This Far, which has been making the headlines recently because not everybody is happy that she put this book out. And I remember the day that we found out that her husband, Twitch, passed away. You and I we were despondent. We could not even believe it. It didn't even feel real. We were messaging back and forth, calling each other, going crazy.
I feel like there's like a few deaths like that. Like I remember Kobe Bryant felt like that.
Yes.
Twitch's death felt like that. Anthony Bourdain's death felt like that. Like I'm trying to remember who else's death
Rachel
hit me.
Hollis's husband, Dave Hollis.
Oh my God. Yes. And it was around the same time. Like there's certain deaths that are just so I guess it's people that like feel so omnipresent in your life. And Twitch was someone that, especially during the pandemic, was someone that was so, I mean, he was on at the Ellen Show daily. And then, of course, I used to watch him on So You Think You Can Dance. And during the pandemic, and it's talked about in the book, they were so live, like always live. And he and his wife and their kids were just like constantly on my feed. So it was
Constantly.
so shocking.
They were one of my favorite parts of, if you can have a favorite part of the pandemic, watching the people on TikTok and the dancers and the families kind of come together during that time. He was actually, the whole family was just like this joyous light, so we thought. I
Oh
think that's why it's
God.
so surprising with a lot of these deaths is that they seem larger than life. They seem happier than most and
Yeah.
bigger than life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went through many different ways of how to go through this in this episode and this deep dive, and I kind of am breaking it up into four parts. The first part being just a very quick 2 to 3 minute of the first half of the book, because I think that's all it needs. It's like just a brief
What are
overview
you
of.
trying to say? Her past is not as interesting?
Well, I think we're all here for to find out what happened and all the conspiracy theories around it and all the questions that we all have, because I think there's just a big question mark that's been shrouding this. And why is it making headlines again? Why is their family so upset? Like I wanted to get to what did she
Totally.
possibly be so upsetting? The second part is kind of the time leading up to Twitch's death and the day of. Then I'm going to go into the aftermath and what she discovered.
Mm,
Then kind of the fallout and how we feel about it now after
I
reading the
love
book.
that.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, so I'm just going to quickly, very quickly go through just because I do think her childhood and what led up to her meeting Twitch is important for later. So just a brief rundown of what we discover in the first half of the book. Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
looking at my phone and going through her Instagram. I'm gonna like scroll back because I listened to the book. You have the hard copy. Are
Yeah.
there pictures?
No, and I actually, while I was reading it, I really wish there was.
She didn't include any pictures.
No, and you know what I actually did is a lot of times while I was reading the book, I Googled like pictures of her wedding, pictures of her
Yeah,
engagement.
really surprised she didn't include pictures. Do you think that there's a reason?
No, but I'm going to when I edit it. I'm going to show the photos that
Yeah,
correlate.
but why do you think that she didn't include? Do you think that there was like some sort of, do you think it's a legal issue?
No, I think it's shocking to me because she seemed so proud, and actually this is one of the things I'll get into is like how she kind of almost over romanticized their relationship. It was cinematic, it was larger than life, all these little moments that she had.
And
The-
even no pictures of her growing up. Like she's talking
no,
about her childhood. Nothing. I'm
no,
surprised. Usually memoirs are filled with pictures, so that's why I thought you for sure had pictures in the hard copy.
no, I had to Google because I was Googling along the way
Yeah.
at the
Wow.
images.
Okay, keep going. Sorry to
Okay,
interrupt.
so Allison, youngest of five. By the time she came along, her family was struggling financially, a lot of anxiety over finances. Her parents worked, multiple jobs. So she was left alone a lot. Dance was her escape. She talked a lot about the competitions and how dance was kind of her therapy and her escape from this life. It gave her kind of purpose. She ends up in New York City, as all dancers do. During this time, she was kind of back and forth between home in Utah, New York City. Um, one of the big pivotal moments from her childhood is questioning the church and her affiliation with it. This was a big tension with her and her family. She felt almost, like the shame of the family because she ended up leaving the church. She just questioned too much about it. She also became the shame of, she felt, her dance club, which was her heart and soul. And she ended up leaving her school dance team because she wasn't a good example, which is what she was told, because of her leaving the church. She then goes on to say, and this is, I want you to jump in here. She then goes on to say she experienced a traumatic event at 17 that had her feeling horrible about herself, but she won't share specifics. And she's keeping it as a secret. She says that her parents found out, were angry at her, at themselves, the person who wronged her. You know what my question's going to be about this. And I'm sure it's the same that you have when you read this. What are your thoughts of her saying that there was this event, but not necessarily going into what it was?
Well, I was texting you with you when it happened, when I listened to this part, because it's like chapter 2 of the book. It's pretty early on. And when you're reading a memoir or listening to a memoir, which I love, I mean, we're such fans of this style of book. So when you listen to memoirs, and someone's writing their own personal story and journey, you assume like it's an open book, literally. Like this is where you're going to get the story. And I don't need a detailed account of, play by play of exactly the traumatic event. But it was so strange to hear exact details of, on this day I went to New York, and on this day my dad was there, and we talked to this person, and we did, and then this one thing happened, but I'm just going to skip over it, and then let's move on. What happened? She didn't say it was sexual trauma. She didn't mention, was it a, can't say the word, but grape? Was it a family member? Was it abuse? She didn't mention even like a vague word. What a strange thing to do in a memoir, talking about a pivotal event that really, she brings up multiple times throughout the book as the event.
Yes.
But no detail.
She also says she convinced her parents not to say anything, even though they were irate. And she says that she has regret for not saying anything. So why isn't she saying it now? And
it's so weird.
Why is she comfortable exposing her late husband's trauma? We'll get to. We're going to get to this. But I just want to put a pin in that because I think that is a big question that I have in the book. Okay.
And it immediately put a wall up. See, as a reader, you want to feel like you're really getting to know your author. And I will say another choice that she made, which I don't love, is I'm an audio listener, especially with memoirs. I love listening to the author, especially when it's a personal memoir, and she doesn't read her own book. And she hired someone to read it, which the only other person that I can think of that does that is Britney Spears. And that makes sense to me. But this did not make sense to me. Like, why didn't she read her own book? Does she have a hard time with that? Like, that felt so weird, and it disconnected me from Allison as a person. So now I don't hear her voice, but also you're not telling me this one pivotal moment. You're not even giving us a hint. So it really kind of, it gave me, it's like, I'm too good to tell you my dark secrets, but hold on, I'm going to tell you everyone else's around me.
Yes, and not to foreshadow, but I feel like this is a common occurrence throughout the stories. She wants the movie version of it, and you'll see that everything is just really cinematic, how she describes it to me. And I feel like that's how she wants her life to be. And so that's how she paints it. So
yeah, and it's also like it immediately shows you that you're not getting the full story. You're just getting her version of events.
Interesting. Okay, so
which you know you're getting when you're getting a memoir. You know you're only getting someone's version of events. But like you kind of want to believe that you're getting the full story. And this immediately pulls you out. You're like, oh, you really are not getting the full story if you're not getting the full story. And she's telling you you're not going to get the full story.
Yeah.
Like, just don't even bring it up at all.
Right.
Why did she bring it up?
Well, that's a good question. I think, so she goes on to meet Stephen, right? Which is what his name, there's two versions of him, right? There's Twitch and there's Stephen, which she goes to say they were two very different people. She meets him first on the set of So You Think You Can Dance. She said it was not love at first sight. She was taken back by his appearance, actually. He was like in a fishnet top, piercings, mohawk, and she was like a girl from Utah. I don't think anyone necessarily saw them as a love connection. She was also seeing someone back home at the time who had addiction issues, and she kind of was falling into that caregiver role. She got
The fixer.
Yes, right.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the role she falls into, and that she said that she was somewhat comfortable with. She got pregnant at 19. Wesley, her daughter, was born in 2008. She, was living back home in Utah with this, guy who was clean. She said that he did clean up his act, but she got bored. Like Allison is someone who wants all the things. She's willing to work for it, but she wants the Hollywood life story.
Yep.
So she got bored in her little small Utah home with Justin. She was the breadwinner during this time. He couldn't keep a job. And so she ended the engagement. This was when she was given an opportunity to return to dance on the So You Think You Can Dance set. She turned it down. She told her mom that she turned it down, and this was a very pivotal moment in her life. Her mother disagreed that she did that, and she told her, "You were just given a gift, a chance to reclaim your identity. Before you love your daughter, you need to first honor and love yourself." And so then Allison thought to herself, you can't tell your children to dream big if you're not doing the same. So I'm going to chase my dreams because that's what I would tell my daughter to do. So she took the job and moved to LA. Now we're at Steven, okay, where they reconnect again. She's back on the set of So You Think You Can Dance.
With a young daughter.
With now a young daughter. Yep.
Yeah, a young daughter.
Yep. She brings her daughter with her. She's now a single mom. She sees Steven again, and something switched in that moment. She said that he was watching him in rehearsals with this new partner and how encouraging and supportive he was, and that he just seemed like the kindest human being she had ever come across. And they went to a cast party, made out, spent the night, and they were inseparable ever since. A Hollywood love story.
Mm-hmm.
They bonded because they both had trauma and abandonment issues from childhood. So again, she kind of brings up this traumatic event.
Mm-hmm.
He brought up hers, but again, she glosses over it.
Mm-hmm.
Does not go into the detail. He hinted to things, but never came out and said them to her, she said. So they bonded because they both had daddy issues, feeling unwanted, both wanted big lives, big goals. They were addicted to the adrenaline rush. Now, you know these couples, Donna, who just, they bond and it's just like magnetic, but everything is at a level 10.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, it almost to me, like those couples where everything has to be larger than life and big in a production. It's like they're destined to crash and burn almost. It's like, you can't ever just have a night at home and just.
Yeah. It feels like it was like a go, 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 hustle, hustle, nonstop. I mean, that's the way it sounds, at least. Like, and they were also their careers were also on fire at the time that they met as well.
And that's got to be attractive in somebody, right? It's like your career's, taking off, you're doing your passion and what you're dreaming about. You're with someone else who's passionate and like in their career. And that's got to be exciting and exhilarating. And it seems like it really, really was for the two of them. And they were
totally.
I mean, that is the Hollywood dream, is it not?
It sounds like it. I mean, it really does. At this point, it sounds like everything's perfect.
Yes. She says it really, really was until they moved in together. And when you move in together, you start.
Wait, no, I think you're passing my favorite part of the book.
Okay, wait, tell me.
The dance battle. I could not.
Donna up and I said, "What chapter are you on? Like, are you in the book?" And she's like, "Molly, I gotta go. I gotta get back to the dance battle."
I said, "Stop interrupting the dance battle." There is one chapter where they go to a bar. Mm-hmm. Which is where I used to live in North Hollywood, like very close to my old place. And it was called the Federal. I don't even know if it's still there, but I remember this bar. And I was never in the upstairs area where they went because that was like the dance club area. I always just went to like the bar area downstairs. And it's this old bank building. There actually was like a huge shootout there in like the 20s or 30s. And it's a really cool building. And they turned it into this like dance club. And I guess it was like a hot spot for professional, up and coming dancers. So she explains that they went there on a date night. And this is when when she was starting to experience like firsthand racism because she was white and he was black, or, that wasn't like a first time thing. This was from the entirety of their relationship, obviously. And, um, and she said she was experiencing it in a bathroom with these two up and coming dancers. She's making it very clear. Now, I'm not going to say their names, but which I think was like kind of a hint for some people, because I think other dancers probably would know exactly who
Oh,
she
they
was
would, yeah,
talking about.
for sure.
But I think it sounds to me like there were two, black women. It sounded to me like she was making it sound like these were women that were black that didn't like that she was white, and that, and then they kind of tried to make her do a dance battle where they were crumping around her in a circle. I mean, I couldn't get over this. The vision, the image of this, right? So she's standing there with him back in the main dance floor. They start crumping around her. What is a crump? I have to like remember what I think it's like a what's a crump? She said she's not a hip hop dancer. I mean, can you imagine Allison, right? She's not a hip hop dancer. And so she's getting intimidated, and she's telling, Steven, like, what do I do? And he's like, babe, I got this. And so and remember, I'm listening to the audio version of this cheesy shit. And so then all of a sudden he's like crumping for her. He's like standing for his woman, right? So he starts crumping it up, crump. And then he takes them down dance wise. Like he doesn't beat them up, but he beats them dance wise. And then he puts his arm around her and he's like, let's go. And I'm like, okay, what in the grease lightning is happening here?
It was like the first few chapters were like High School Musical episodes.
That's what it felt like. It felt like we were watching a High School Musical book. It was so cheesy. But she wanted the world to feel like, oh my God, this is a storybook romance. But you're right. Like, I get it. She really wanted to set the audience up for being like, nothing can go wrong until. So the first sign of the cracking of everything was, you're right, when they move in together. And that I remember was the next chapter after the dance, the crumping. I need to Google a crumping dance scene after this.
Maybe I'll put in a video here to show
We need to we need to see
we
crumping.
need the visual. Okay, so everything's going well. High School Musical got another season renewed, and life is good. All right, so they move in together, and that brought the differences out. And this is the first time you kind of see the foreshadowing of the cracks.
Yes.
She loved to entertain and be social. He was painfully shy and nervous, but at home and at social events, before any red carpet events. She realized later on that what he had was social anxiety disorder. And she kind of guessed maybe it's from his need to be perfect, which he talked about a lot. He really put a lot of pressure on himself to be not Steven, but the Twitch, this other character that we all knew about him, this larger than life megawatt smile guy.
It's what we all thought he was all the time, because that's all we saw was him on camera.
Yes.
Was on stories, on Instagram, or on Ellen, or on TV, which is interesting. And you also passed over something that she mentions a few times, and I remember she said it when she first talks about moving in with him, was his mess.
Yes.
That was another thing. And she said that he was filled with Superman memorabilia.
Yes.
And Superman and Clark Kent is also like a little interesting thing with the Twitch and Steven. It's like two personalities.
Oh, that's so interesting. You're so right. Yes, she said she was very neat, and he had a comfort with clutter, is what she called it, and that he had tons. Did you see that?
It's the Zoom, the reactions. I turned mine off. You just got confetti. The Zoom reactions are wild.
Very High School Musical. Okay, this is great.
Yeah.
It actually works. It works perfectly.
Comfort with clutter.
Okay, so I mean, it was a little childlike in the sense, like you were saying, because she would buy these like chandeliers or lamps for the place, and he would like hang little Spider-Mans off of them, or like little toys. And she said he had this like very childlike persona. He wanted to stay in this like child version of himself. But he was very sweet. He also got up an hour earlier than her to make her coffee and bring it to her every single morning. But he also said he needed that time to himself, right?
To decompress.
Yes, before he started his day.
Or like if they went out to anything when they got home. And this is interesting because I've heard of this before. I'm not really someone that needs this. Are you? I don't think you are either.
Oh, no, I am. To recharge my battery?
like he said that when he gets oh, she said when he got home, he would literally sit in his favorite chair, put his hood over his head, pull the strings, literally get into like his own little sweatshirt cave
Yeah.
and just be quiet. And she would probably annoy him because she'd be like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Can I help you? Do you need anything?" And he would be like, "Just leave me alone," basically.
And I do identify with that because I am someone who needs to recharge their battery. And like I get, it's hard for me to people for like all day. Like
No, I think
I do need
everyone has that to a degree, but do you really need alone time or you just need to
no.
chill?
I just need to chill.
Same, but I don't need to like literally go into a dark closet and like be alone. Some people actually have that. I remember that episode of Sex in the City where Carrie comes home and Aiden is sitting in the living room or whatever, and he's like, "How you been? How you doing? What you doing? Where you going? What you doing?" When they like move in together for a bit, and she's like, I need you to just not like just leave me alone, you know?"
So let's move forward to their engagement. Again,
Okay.
larger than life, cinematic. He tells her that they have this commercial they're going to film. She's kind of kept
Oh,
away.
did you hear who was directing it?
No.
John Chu, who directed Wicked.
Oh,
He
okay.
because John Chu was like a big music video guy.
Oh,
And so I love that she like throws she name drops a lot in that book.
yes.
Our friend John Chu, she says, and I'm like, is John Chu still on Allison's side now, or is he mad at her? I was
Interesting.
thinking that.
I know, we'll have to dive deep on that one too.
Hmm.
So they're filming this commercial, she thinks, right? And then all of a sudden the cameras are on her, everyone's looking at her, it's going off script, and he turns to her, gets down on his knees and gives a beautiful speech, and they're engaged in a very cinematic, larger than life
He
way.
brings the family in. It's like a very, and I've seen video of it. I don't know if
You
you've seen
have?
video of it. Yeah, I know
If I
that's
find it,
floating.
I'll insert it in here so that
Yeah,
people
it's
see it.
floating on YouTube. I've definitely seen video of that. Like right after he passed, I remember finding video of that, and it's
Oh,
it's very, very sweet.
I'm sure it is. I mean, it is like a fairy tale engagement, a fairy tale wooing of, this
Of
couple.
course, there are these two like up and coming dancers that like were just so talented and exploding on the scene, really. I mean, and it was just so sweet the fact that they didn't look alike and that they
Yeah.
were so different
Yeah.
on the outside and really connected anyway. And the fact that she was a mom and he didn't care and was
Yeah.
willing to, and
Embraced
then
it.
he was on Ellen and was so successful. Like I'm sorry, Twitch to me exuded happiness and positivity. I remember feeling
Oh,
that
yeah.
way.
And everyone said that he made every single person who was around him feel like they were the most important person. And you could feel that, like that energy from him. I mean,
A
just like
hundred
a
percent.
really amazing human.
My good friend Lainey would die to go to the Ellen show, and she went a few times, but not because of Ellen, just to go for Twitch. Like I
I
think he
believe.
had way many fans. Like I think a lot of people wanted to go to the Ellen show for him.
Oh, 100%. Oh my God, he brought such amazing energy. He was so fun.
Yeah.
All right. So at this time, she's engaged to the most amazing man. He's happy. She's happy. She gets booked on Dancing with the Stars, even though she had zero ballroom experience, but she had choreographed with Derek.
Yes.
So she had that experience, and I'm sure her name was dropped. And, she learned how to ballroom dance. I thought she was great on the show, to be honest. I
I
thought
don't
she was
remember it.
an amazing dancer. And she gets pregnant.
Hmm.
First child together. They announce it on, of course, TV on Dancing with the Stars with Erin Andrews, and everyone goes crazy and wild. And their careers are thriving. It's chaotic. I mean, they're all over the place. They have this child at home that they're raising. She's pregnant. They're both doing their shows. And then, of course, she has a baby reveal that was done in a flash mob because, of course, she arranged a flash mob for the big reveal. He had no idea. All the dancers were there, and then it was like, "You're having a boy," which is so cute. I mean, everything was just so cute. It just seemed, again, on the outside, perfect.
Hmm.
So their baby boy, Maddox, was
But
then
she also wasn't sharing that anything was really bad behind the scenes at that time either.
no,
Mine is just like stressful, like normal stress, but
yeah,
nothing. She wasn't saying that like behind the scenes things were tough at that time.
no. But you know how like I do this, even if things are bad or stressful at home, I'll keep myself so busy to not even have the chance to even think about it. You don't even notice it. It's just like you're keeping yourself so busy that I don't even think there were issues. What do you
Yeah,
think?
but she's not even saying in hindsight, now that I think about it,
Mhm.
he felt very overwhelmed
Yeah.
at that time. Like
They
she's
didn't
saying that
notice anything. Nope.
things were very happy at that
Yeah.
time.
Genuinely, I think that
Yeah.
they were very happy. Okay, so their son was born. In 2014, Stephen accepted the job with Ellen. He was first her hype guy, and then the house DJ, and then Ellen's sidekick. And then I think he even hosted a few. Am I right?
Yeah, like when she was out sick or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And she says in the book that he was really fond of Ellen, that he found the atmosphere there full of love and positive energy, which is quite different than what a lot of other people are saying.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if that's really was his experience or she just was like, there's no way I'm messing with that Ellen world
Well, throughout the book, she throws a lot of praise
towards
on
Ellen.
Ellen. Even at like his funeral, she talks very
Yep.
positively. So you never
Well,
know.
maybe look, she also maybe had a great experience with Ellen.
Yeah.
Like
I'm sure
Ellen may have
Ellen liked
loved
you
Twitch.
and needed you and respected you. I'm sure she was wonderful to be around.
Exactly. They may have just only had great interactions with her.
Mm-hmm. All right, she gets pregnant with her second kid, and they have that baby Zaya, I believe is her name. And then the pandemic comes, right? They've already amassed a following, but nothing as big as when they went viral with their patio dances, right? How
Mm-hmm.
fun were they? So entertaining. We fell in love with them as a couple, as a family. They just really wanted to spread joy and light during that dark time for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I just want to paint the picture that even though it's the pandemic, she doesn't notice anything. Like a lot of people, I think, kind of fell apart during the pandemic. She's still saying that they're feeling good. They're thriving. They're still getting brand deals. They're getting tons of followers and attraction through, their TikTok. All right. Then she moves on to kind of the last few months of his life, right? So now we're in, what are we, 2021, 2022?
He passed in 2022,
Okay.
right? Yeah. The end
Yes.
of 2022, December of 2022.
The first time she mentions noticing that things are not how they usually are is that he started saying no to a lot of opportunities that he would normally say yes to.
Mm-hmm.
He spent a lot of time, she said she spent a lot of time in his chair, which you were talking about, like with his
Mm-hmm.
whatever reading. But then she noticed he wasn't turning the pages.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be a
He was
big
just staring off into space, basically.
yes. He was more irritable, losing temper with the children. But again, like how much of it is like the pandemic? You know what I mean? You're talking up like, listen, our lives have changed. We're all
But
stuck
she
at home.
noticed specifically, she said specifically he was having a really hard time with the son.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, listen, I think Maddox was in kindergarten or something at the time, which is like 5, and the daughter was only 3. A 5-year-old son, speaking from experience, is very challenging. And we all have our times with our kids. And I think that like that could be attributed to anything, where you're just like annoyed with one kid, maybe more than another at a certain time. But she thought it was really strange. Like he was having a really hard time with the son and would put strange rules on him, like you're not allowed to wear shorts. And she found it like really odd, like really weird things he would
Yeah.
pick on his son for. And she felt like, is he seeing a part of him that's like triggering a part of his own childhood?
Yep. Some other things she was noticing was his sleep pattern started to change, less
Mhm.
sleep, staying up playing video games. He started drinking more.
Wait,
Yeah.
was this after Ellen had been canceled? I
Um,
think this is right after Ellen was canceled.
yes, I think you're right. So
Ellen was canceled
Ellen
right
got
around.
canceled, but she said, okay, so correct me if I'm wrong here, Donna. She said that she was worried when Ellen got canceled that he would be, really upset. And he was upset. He felt like maybe overlooked because he was hoping that maybe he would get a hosting gig of a show. Like he was definitely in talks that was a possibility. But then it also opened up to him doing something bigger because he was kind of her sidekick and like the DJ versus now it gave him an opportunity to do something bigger that was more like him. So he wasn't as down as she thought, but also there were these signs. So it was kind of confusing.
Yeah, I think the show ended in the 20, like in 21. I think
Okay.
it was around 21.
Okay. So right
But
before she noticed kind of all these things.
yeah, it was over in it would oh, okay. In May 2021, she announced the show would end the following year. So it ended
Okay.
2021, 22. But I think that's when things started really changing because his
Yeah.
routine was off. So
Totally
he was
off.
staying up really late
Yep.
and he was still waking up early. So he wasn't sleeping. He was playing video games
Hmm.
all night long, she said.
Yep. Started showering less. She's talked about his hygiene and like, he dances a lot and he
She
works
said
up
he
a
was
sweat every day.
sweaty
Yeah.
and
That
smelly.
he would come to bed and she would even say something to him about it. Like it was getting to be, a lot.
And like she would notice he would drink a lot.
Yes. He also carried a black backpack with him everywhere, she said. And in it was an iPad, laptop, journals, and books. But she said he never used or read them that she saw, but he always had to have them with him, which was very interesting. He
Mm.
started smoking more pot. She always knew he smoked in the mornings, I think he said. But now, when she was like looking at security footage, that it was much more rampant. Um, and then another pivotal moment, she says, where all of this kind of changed, where it kind of was the crux for it. He went on an ayahuasca journey in Joshua Tree. He said he needed to figure out his feelings of abandonment and trauma relief. He needed relief from it.
Hmm.
He goes to Joshua Tree. I actually screenshot it. I want to read it. So while he was at this ayahuasca retreat, which I think was supposed to be 3 to 4 days long, on the first night, she says, Stephen sent me a photo early the first night of a herd of deer and said it was turning out to be an incredible experience. Then he called me again and said the night had taken a really weird turn. He mentioned something about the shaman being locked in the bathroom. Instead of sticking it out, he decided to cut the trip short. Something like really freaked him out. Our friend picked up Stephen the next morning and brought him home. During the drive, Stephen said he was disappointed that he didn't have any hallucinations after drinking the tea and that he had gone to address his anxiety and depression and the chaos in his head. I've come to understand that the recommended duration for an experience is 3 to 7 days, with weeks of follow up work supervised by the shaman. Stephen returned home after less than 12 hours and threw himself back into work. And she said,
Mm.
from that moment on, he was a different person.
Meaning what she said was basically that he opened up this like portal to this ayahuasca journey and never actually did anything healing with it. So it was like an unchecked journey, which is very scary and dangerous, possibly.
Do you know anyone who's done ayahuasca or gone on one of those?
Not in real life, but I've watched and seen enough like podcasts and reality shows like Chelsea Handler, Kristen
Uh-huh.
Cavallari, like
Uh-huh.
all these people that have talked about it. It seems really intense. And I
Intense.
would never,
Life
ever,
changing.
yeah, and I would never, ever want someone that was like potentially depressed or anxious or maybe possibly suicidal, God forbid, to do that and come home halfway like that. Like that's wild.
Well, that was definitely a pivotal moment. And then 72 hours before his death, it was their anniversary weekend.
Hmm.
Okay. They go away. They're in Laguna Beach. This is December of 2022. She plays a song for him in the car that she wrote called Better Together for their anniversary gift. He's emotional about it. He's crying. He's so moved by it. She says that they have never been more in sync during this time. They go to a gallery. They buy this romantic sculpture of two humans hugging and dancing. They're talking about their future plans and the projects that will be coming out soon. They talk about having more kids. They talk about getting this dog. In her mind, she's like, he's looking into the future. He's not thinking of end, you know what I mean? He's forward talking.
He buys her a suit, a
Yes.
Gucci, right?
Yep.
Gucci black suit.
Mm-hmm.
Wild.
Wild. And she goes to say, was that him saying, I'm going to get her something nice to wear to my funeral?
Yeah.
Right? Looking back at it. Or was that
Just a
him
nice gift.
a nice gift? But she says it's not his usual gift because normally he buys like very practical, that this was like an extravagant gift for
Yeah.
her. right?
Yeah, but you can only imagine because I remember like stalking their Instagram after this happened, and I remember seeing all these like anniversary posts right before. You can only imagine how crazy that is. You go away for your anniversary. It's December. It's cold. It's rainy. It's cozy. Laguna Beach. It's so beautiful. They probably went to a gorgeous dinner, drinking wine, champagne, whatever. Probably. I mean, I'm sure they said she said that they slept together. They were like trying to have sex, basically having
Yeah,
kids.
have
Like
a baby.
yeah, talking about their future. They had 15 different projects in the works. It's not like they were in a period of like, oh God, what are we going to do? We have nothing coming up. We have no money. How are we going to pay the mortgage? Like everything was lining up for them.
Oh yeah.
They have this beautiful family back at home that is so excited to decorate the tree. Like everything was lining up. Nothing made sense to the point where, 2 days later, this happened.
So the night before, I'm going to read kind of an excerpt from the book here.
Hmm.
She says, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Our house was buzzing with laughter and holiday excitement. I went upstairs, read stories to the littles, listened to their prayers, and tucked them into bed. Back downstairs, Wesley and I snuggled on the couch and watched the season finale of The White Lotus. Stephen wasn't interested in the show, so it was just us girls. As we were settling in, I received a text from Stephen with a tree emoji. That was a common shorthand he used for weed dispensary. I'll be right back, he said. Not long after he left, he called me and sounded freaked out. He said he was really high, which seemed totally out of character for him. For as long as I had known him, he had always waited until he got home to smoke. I offered to come get him, but he couldn't string a sentence together. He managed to convey that he just needed a minute to collect himself. I reiterated that I was more than happy to come pick him up, but he said he didn't even know where he was. This was not an ordinary conversation. I'd never known him to act like this. When he arrived home, he was acting terribly strange. I lied, he ranted. I will be forever tormented by those two words. I lied. She says that then she was like, I thought we should just go to bed. He should sleep this off. Promptly at 7 the next morning, per our routine, he brought her the steaming cup of coffee, which he always does in her Superman mug. I was seated at my vanity, already tending to my face and hair. The gesture was more than his first act of love of the day, as he described it. On this day, okay, he goes on and on. He took
And
his
he apologizes. He basically brings it to her as an apology. And he says, I'm really sorry. He claims he has no memory of saying I lied because
Yep.
she questions him, like, what happened
Yeah,
last
and he
night?
acts like it never, he's like, oh, I don't even remember saying that.
He's like, yeah, I don't really remember saying that, but we got to move on with our day. Like they got to take the kids to school. They
Mm-hmm.
go, the 7 a.m. hustle as we all have it. Got to get the kids ready. We got to take the kids to school and they go their separate ways because they have 3 kids, right?
It's a
They have
normal
different
day
schools.
in her
Yeah.
mind.
So she's got to take her older to school and he's got to take the younger and they say bye.
And the one thing that stood out from him taking his daughter to school was he said to her as she got out of the car, I'm sorry I couldn't be your Superman,
He said that to the daughter.
to the daughter, which is very heavy for her to carry that because at the time he just thought it was being, like another weird dad moment. But now looking back, that was a heavy statement to leave.
Wow.
Yeah. So the day goes on, super, super busy. She said that he was responding through text, but he didn't show up at the office. But he was still kind of responding to work stuff and whatever. So she didn't think much about it that he didn't show up, even though he was supposed to. Because I guess sometimes he does it, he gets carried away, his workouts go longer, whatever. She's so immersed in all of their projects and everything that she's doing that the day just goes on. And all of a sudden, before you know it, it's time to go home and make dinner. And she goes home. His car's in the driveway. She immediately goes to the shower and does her like nighttime routine. She's not thinking he's not there. She thinks he's just holed up in his office.
Yeah, they
And
have a nice, like, large home, one of those like
yeah,
5, 6 bedroom homes. So she's
yeah,
assuming he's home somewhere in the house.
somewhere in the house. And she goes to make dinner. She then starts to look for him. She can't find him. That's weird. She starts texting for him. He's not responding.
And
Again,
they don't have location services on their phone, like Find My iPhone, which is wild.
wild.
Like I totally can track my husband's phone. I can track every person in my house's phone.
I bet you have like my life 360.
Yeah, I'm like Sheena from Vanderpump Rules. I can track everyone's phone. No, I mean honestly, like the fact that you wouldn't be able to track your own husband's phone in case of emergencies like that. I mean, I'm not. It's not for stalking reasons. It's for emergency purposes. Like it's so weird.
100%. Hmm.
That would freak me out to not know where my husband was. This part of the story gave me serious anxiety.
Well, that, and so she starts calling family, friends, local hospitals. She didn't call the police because he has told her over and over again during their time together, never call the police on me. You know what they
I'm
think?
black.
Yes, it's please don't ever call the police on me. So she was trying to respect that. She's like, oh, maybe he's out with a friend. Maybe he, I mean, she was, all the logical things that we would all be like, you don't immediately think the worst, although you're getting worried. Okay. So she's calling local hospitals. Like maybe he got into an accident somewhere. Maybe he's hurt. She does finally, was it the next morning or that night? I can't remember.
They
Call.
said you have to wait 24 hours to file a missing persons.
Yes. So she waits the 24 hours and she's like unglued at this point.
I mean, I couldn't even imagine. I wouldn't be able to last an hour. I don't know how you do 24.
He's never disappeared before. It's not like this is something that's happened before and there was a logical explanation. This is never, ever, this is so out of routine. For him to not respond to a text, respond to a call, never been done. His friends were calling and texting him. He wasn't responding to them. Never. That was not in his character. So she waits the 24 hours. She files the report. The police come to the home. They start looking at the security footage. They saw that he took an Uber with that black backpack that he always kept by him. Okay. And they start looking through the house. They said, is there a weapon in this house? Is there a gun of any kind? And she couldn't understand why they were asking that. But she's like, oh, yeah,
Hmm.
he did get a gun just to be protective. And they went to the gun case and saw that the gun was missing.
Yeah, she didn't even know where the gun case was.
Yeah. And again, she's still not putting it together at this point. She's like, where could he be? Where could he be? She's like, oh, there's recovery centers within, the area. Maybe he went and go to check himself in. Maybe he was really battling with, the marijuana usage.
Maybe he's in rehab.
Maybe he's in rehab. So she starts calling the recovery centers, which of course they're not allowed to say who's there. It's, private and secret. But one of them responded with, if he's here, what would you want to say to him? Which she took as confirmation that he's there. So
Which is a wild turn. Like, I wonder why this person did this.
right?
So basically, she
What a
calls all these
stranger thought.
places and they're like, no, can't tell you, can't tell you, can't tell you. He's an adult, can't tell you. And this one person gave her a false sense of hope by saying, well, we're not allowed to tell you, but if he's here, what should we? Why would you do that? So she's like, oh, thank God they found him. He's there. She's like, please tell him. I love him. I'm so proud of him. She feels relieved. She's like, they found him. We're good. He's at rehab, guys.
Yep. She starts calling everyone, the family, the friends, the guys, don't worry. I found
Runs to the cops. Yeah.
Yeah. 20 minutes later, 3 police officers come to the door and tell her to sit down. And they say he's been found by the hotel maid and he shot himself. She's in disbelief. She's like, no, 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 no. You have the wrong guy. There's no way. And they're like, no, he left a letter. He left his ID. We saw his tattoos. And they found that he had switched his phone to airplane mode so he couldn't be reached. And as you can imagine, her entire world fell apart in that moment. So there was so much to grapple with, right? So now we're in the aftermath. Okay. She has acknowledged that this is her husband. He shot himself in a local motel.
Like, if you know this motel, like, it is the most unassuming, random ass. Like, you would never, ever think to go there. Like, it's so weird.
And even though you're given all the facts, you're still in denial. Like you're in such shock. You're like, no, it can't be him. There's no
Well,
way.
she says is like she still expects, even a couple days later, that he's going to call her and be like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That was just a freak accident. I'm fine."
100%.
Or like, what I would think I would do is think like, "Oh, I can't wait to call Steven and tell him about this."
Right. Like, oh my God, I got to
I
call
have
him.
to share it with him, this crazy story about what just happened with Steven.
Right, exactly.
Like that's what you want to do because he's your best friend. Like you tell him everything. You're talking to him 15 times a day.
So it
It's
finally
just
hit.
so sudden.
It's so unbelievable. There's just in her mind, there's no way it doesn't reconcile. The moment she realized that not only did it happen, but it wasn't an impulsive decision either, was she found the key to the gun case on her vanity that he had left for her to find, because it's also where he kept his personal passwords and other codes that she knew he knew she would need. And this was the moment, Donna. If
Wait,
I'm
in the gun case was the personal passcodes,
Yes,
like on a piece of paper?
yes.
I missed that part. Okay.
This was the moment, Donna, because I get caught up. I put on my like tinfoil hat all the times, right? I didn't want to believe he did it either. I was one of those who's like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. There's no way he would have done it. This was the moment I was like,
Well, clearly he was planning.
he did it. There was,
He planned it
yeah,
because he did that. So he, before he left the house that day,
yeah.
found a way to put the key on her desk. So she said, I know. So she would know to look there.
Mm-hmm. It was his way of saying like,
It's there.
it's there. Here's everything you need. I plan, you know what I mean? I plan this. Here's what you need.
Even though the case was unlocked.
Mm-hmm. So it was kind of telling her like, go and look in there. You know what I mean? Um, so it's like, what do you do in that moment? She goes, her assistant goes to pick up the oldest daughter, who she told first. She
Uh-huh.
waited a few days to tell the younger. I mean, they're all in shock. Okay. She's not eating, she's not sleeping, she's not even drinking water, she's not even reading any text. She's getting, how many texts do you get, right? It's broken in the news. Everyone's hearing about it. Everyone has their theories. No one believes it. No one. She didn't open one text. She said that she was a disaster until one night she got her first night of sleep. In that he came to her in a dream and she clearly saw his face and he mouthed the words, "I'm sorry. I love you." And she said that she felt his presence and woke up for the first time in days and days, feeling a bit of peace.
Mm.
And then she coped the only way she knew how, by being manic. Business. Okay, this is what I have to do. I gotta settle this. I gotta work on this. They owned multiple homes. They had multiple business deals. She just went into workaholic mode, I think, as her way of coping. And at this time, and you and I were discussing all of the rumors, all of the conspiracies of what it could possibly be. And she said she was very upset by them because she knew the truth, right? She
Mm-hmm.
knew that he killed himself.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, oh, he didn't die by suicide. And there was a lot of public doubt that that's what really happened, and a lot of questioning of her. Um, they then had to plan the funeral. And that was a cause of strife between her and his family, right? And this will come into play in a little bit when we talk about what's going on now in the headlines. They argued over if it should be a closed or open casket. She wanted it closed because she wanted him remembered how she thought he would want to be remembered and not how she would imagine he would look. And the family was adamant that it be open, that's how they do it. So they compromised. They did it open for the immediate family. And then once they said their goodbyes, they closed it for the rest of the people that were coming. She didn't want any photos or videos taken. She was very, very protective. She did not want it to be discussed, for anyone to see him in that way. So she made everybody sign an NDA. This did not make the family very happy. They were very insulted that she would ask them to sign an NDA.
Mm.
The place was still leaked to the press. It was held at Mosaic Church, which was found out by the paparazzi, and she was upset about that. This was a church that she had attended even pre-Stephen, but a place that they went to together that was filled with light. It was like white all inside. She felt it was like it was their place. But she really wanted to keep it private. Ellen DeGeneres spoke at the service, and she said she was mad at Stephen. And And Allison said she was really happy that Ellen said that because it's how she was feeling. And she felt bad that she was feeling it. And that others around her were like relieved that Ellen said, you know what, I'm angry at you for doing it this way and leaving us this way. And Allison really appreciated it being said. Again, she was very positive about Ellen and who Ellen was in their life. The other strife with the family came from them blaming her for his death. Again, about her making them sign the NDAs. What are your thoughts on the family being upset at all of these requests?
For the NDAs?
Yeah.
So I get both sides. I think she was very anxious about, his reputation and pictures, and it was an open casket. And she was nervous that things were going to be sold to the paparazzi and it getting out. And I think she was acting on paranoia and she wasn't sleeping and she was nervous about things being sold. And I think you just get anxious. I can't fault her necessarily for that in the moment.
Anybody knows how you will react to trauma until something like that happens to you. And hopefully that never happens to anybody, but we all react differently in trauma and shock. And his family's in trauma and shock as well, reacting in their own ways. And again, everyone reacts differently and you can't be judged, or you shouldn't be judged on how you need to cope with it.
I think it's just hard because everyone feels like they're a loved one. If you're getting invited to a funeral, you feel like you're a loved one. And so it feels like, wait, you want me, his sister, to sign an NDA? That's the thing. It's like, well, it's also like, how big is this invite list? If you're asking us to sign NDAs, maybe you should like cut down the invites. Like, are you really inviting people that you don't trust?
Mm-hmm. So does that mean she didn't trust his family, his immediate family?
Sounds like it.
I mean, that's what it sounds like to me, right? All right. So let's get to the discoveries that she made while she was going through his stuff after his death.
Yeah.
She says that she discovered his journals, right? Remember that big black backpack that he was carrying everywhere?
Yes.
Inside were those journals. Inside those journals, she says that she read them, of course, that in there, he wrote about sexual abuse he endured as a child at the hands of an adult male. She interpreted his entries of possibly protecting us from an even more horrifying act he thought he might be capable of, referring to their son. She looked at his search history and she saw that he was looking up weed websites, magic mushroom websites. She realized that his addiction to marijuana was more than marijuana, that he was going into more hallucinogenics and that kind of thing. She looked at kind of what he was searching for, and he looked into inquiries like, do my kids love my nanny more than me? How do I become a better father? How do I communicate with my kids? He clearly was struggling with his role as a father.
Which, by the way, is like not that wild of a search. Like, I've searched stuff like that.
I mean,
why does my kid hate me? Like, is it normal that my kid yells at me?
Is it normal to fail 5 times a day as a mother? Yeah.
Yeah. Is it normal that my kid and I fight every day? Like, that's such a normal thing to, especially when your kids are 5 and 3 and they don't communicate well. It is such a normal thing to be like, why do my kids like my nanny more than me?
Is it normal to lock my closet with a glass of champagne and cry?
Yeah. It's such a like, actually, I find that like more loving as a father.
Yes, of course.
It means he actually cared.
Of course.
That's not weird at all.
Doubted that he's caring, that he wants to be this amazing, perfect.
Totally.
And that he's struggling because he feels like he's falling short.
Totally.
She also found that in the summer of 2022, so not long before this happened, he had looked up a suicide hotline.
She said that she was able to research that he never actually called, but I don't know how the hell she was able. Is she Blake Lively? Is she subpoenaing all his phone calls for 2.5 years?
It's wild because you're like, okay, were there previous attempts? They say more often than not, when someone has a successful, if you want to call it that, suicide, that there were usually at least 1 or 2, if not more, failed attempts beforehand.
Well, which is why she thinks that is that why he came home the night before saying, I lied, panicking. Was that what he was doing the night before?
Right. There was a note left to his next to his body, a multi-page letter left with more questions than closure, she said.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't say specifically what it said, but said that he expressed so much love and shame, a word he used multiple times in the letter. One sentence stuck out about a little boy. It said that he was still a little boy. He couldn't get past the little boy that he was, who has been so abandoned and ashamed, and that there were dried teardrops on the pages. When picking out his outfit and looking for sneakers for him to wear, she found Ziploc bags of psychedelic mushrooms. Some were full, some were empty, other substances too, mushrooms, cash, tactical knives, and pills. Now, in the interview, when she said she discovered drug, I thought, I was going to it sounded like heavy drug usage. Did it not to you, Donna? Of like,
It sounded like he was. I mean, she said bags and bags of pills of all kinds. I mean, she made it sound like he was running a factory of drugs.
yeah. So this brings us to the family writing some pretty scathing posts and comments on them being really angry that she published this book, that she is talking about him in this, what they deem a negative way, to the press, and that she shouldn't be, that she should be honoring his legacy in a more positive way, because that's what he would have wanted. What are your thoughts about, after reading the book, do you think they are warranted to feel this way?
It's really challenging because I was listening to the book and I was really trying to put myself in both shoes, right? I was trying to put myself in her shoes and then I was trying to put myself in his mom's shoes. And granted, I told you I didn't finish the last two chapters. So what you're talking about right now is literally where I finished reading, like kind of right where you are, right after she discovered all the drugs and kind of was like trying to put the pieces back together of her life. Okay. So I don't know where it goes here, but I know that I was just speaking to someone on my podcast who is married to Twitch's former dance partner from So You Think You Can Dance, Courtney. And she posted on Instagram the day that this book press release type, when she started doing press, and was devastated and so angry. She said, "You made us sign the NDA and I can't believe you're doing this." She's very
That
angry.
post was like harsh and heartfelt.
Courtney's?
Yes, but
Yes.
heartfelt. You
Yeah,
could,
she was, I mean, it came from the heart, like very, very, very upset
yeah.
and very hurt by Allison's actions. It's not coming from a place of like F you, Allison. It's coming from a place of how dare you hurt Twitch this way. And then of course, Twitch's family now is coming back very angry and very hurt by so many things. And they're even coming back with like some really bad press for Allison. For example, a lot of things towards Allison's past behavior is starting to get leaked. And even some press about how I sent it to you the other day, how Twitch was really unhappy in his marriage with Allison. There's like some little droppings that are coming out. It's feeling very much like you're telling one side of the story. You're not telling the whole side of the story. You're making it sound like you were this perfect, wonderful, amazing, lovely, fantastic wife, mother, everything. And he was this troubled soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's truth, there is like lies in both.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is no way that Twitch was all of these bad things. But see, I don't think Allison is saying that either. I think Allison is saying he was amazing.
Yeah.
He was clearly a very troubled person. And she mentions one thing in the book. She says, the reason why I'm doing this is because do you know how many people are out there like Twitch? Like showing us that version. And Twitch was the guy that people would call with suicidal ideation.
Mm-hmm.
And he would walk them off the ledge
Yeah.
and never once told us he was also. So, like, if that is who you're living with, maybe this will open you up to have more conversation. I wish I did. There's a part of me that's like, this is important to listen to.
Yeah.
So I kind of understand why. The problem is people that are in Twitch's corner are saying, why did you use our Twitch
Hmm.
as your example?
So I'm going to go to, because I have her answer for it, I think.
Okay.
She decided to do it during her healing, right?
Hmm.
She obviously was working with a therapist. A good friend of hers was like, when you're ready, I want you to talk to a psychic. And
Yes, I didn't hear this part. Okay.
so I'm going to read this passage from the book of her and her conversation with the psychic, which I think explains why she felt okay publishing the book. Okay. I didn't know how the call would proceed, but as soon as the medium started talking, we connected. We talked about life and love and kids like old friends. She had no idea I was writing this book. I didn't mention it, and my friend who connected us had never discussed it with her. So I sat up straighter when she said she knew that I was embarking on a new journey that really scared me. And even though I hadn't known how much I was free to share, Stephen wanted to make it clear that he's proud of me and he's giving his permission to share his other side because he believes it's important that he has seen all of him.
Mm.
And I believe in psychics. Um, and I think that that was what she needed. I'm sure she went back and forth writing this book of what to include, what not to include. I'm sure there's more that she could have included that she didn't. And I think it's cathartic for her. Listen, he didn't die and then 2 months later she write this tell all. Okay. She's been working on herself for years. She has been working through this. She has had to go through so much. People had the wrong impression that when he died that she was left millions of his. She made it very clear she no longer had medical insurance because they were all under his policy. All of their investments that they made you can get access to under his name. He didn't leave a will. That permission that she was given and the healing she's done through therapy, this is what she needed to give to the world. It's kind of her last, like, no, I'm going to set the record straight. I'm tired of all the rumors. I'm tired of all these crazy conspiracies. She's thinking of her children who have to read all about this all the time. She's like, I'm going to set the record straight. And I'm not going to let those who are hurting stay silent because everyone comes up to them and her and the kids be like, oh, I love Twitch. He was the most brightest, most wonderful, happiest guy. And she wants to be like, no, he wasn't. And that's okay.
Hmm. Yeah, she said that there's like all the I did hear this part that there's like all these lies that keep coming to her kids. Like he was the best basketball player, or like I forget what they say about him. Like he was the best baseball player or whatever. And she's like, why are people like putting him on this perfect pedestal at all times when in reality he was wonderful, but he was a tortured soul basically.
And his kids know that. I mean, they saw him at home in the chair with the hoodie, just like kind of comatose, staring at a page of a book. Like they saw the other
And
side.
clearly he had anger issues. He had issues with his son. He was probably not this happy-go-lucky guy all the time. And it's kind of like a you do want to kind of idealize your dad and always remember good things. But the truth is it's setting you up for failure to be like, he was so perfect, he was so perfect, he was so perfect. And he then also unalived himself.
Absolutely. And I think when I look at both sides, his family side, who are clearly protective of him and his legacy, and they don't want to hear about the bad things that happened during his childhood, right? They're going to be defensive about it. And they want him remembered as this because they feel that sharing that's going to taint that image of him, where she's like, no, that makes him real. And he's helping others. And that's what he's always wanted to do, is to help others. And this is his way of still being able to do so. So in the end, I think they're both fighting for the same thing, their love of Stephen, right? And honoring his legacy. They may both come at it with different viewpoints, but I think both of their intentions are good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. She gets a very, very bad reputation. And there's a lot of people on in the internet space and the online space that really dislike her.
Yeah.
And I know I've seen way too many, videos and YouTubes about an attitude of hers, an entitlement of hers, and she may be all those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it doesn't help that she has a new boyfriend now and she's writing this and she was parading happiness fairly soon after, like within a few, like 6 months, 8 months, she was like walking, she was taking off her ring. Like,
Yeah.
remember, and she even says in the book, she's like, people ask why is I forget who she says, oh, why does Kobe's wife still wear her ring,
Mm.
but you don't? And
Mhm.
she said, well, Kobe didn't choose to leave his wife.
Mm.
And Stephen chose to leave me.
She has a lot of anger.
I would too.
I was just about to say, I don't blame her
Are
for
you supposed to not have anger?
and
Like,
even okay, so
it's
she talks about
human.
in the last few chapters, and I don't know if you got to this part or not. She talks about moving. They left their house, they moved into a new house. And in that process, right, when you move, you go through all this stuff and you give a lot of stuff away. And she gave a lot of his stuff away. She kept the significant stuff, but she gave a lot of his stuff away that was triggering to them. And the kids. The kids get very triggered, they said, by certain things. They have anger too that their dad chose to leave. There's
Understandable.
understandable. And she didn't want the triggering things around. So she put a lot of stuff in storage for a later time when they did want it, but she doesn't want it in the house. People can criticize that, like, oh, she's getting rid of it, And I think until you've experienced that,
You have nothing to say.
no, she has
It's
the right to be angry and hurt. And
Yeah, it's a really, really unfortunate situation because also it's very easy to say from an outsider's perspective, how dare you share this? That's not your story to tell. But it's actually her story to tell because
yeah.
she was the one married to him. She was the one who was left to pick up all the pieces.
And this is how she experienced it. It's okay if his family and his friends experienced it differently,
Like
but this
they can write their own book.
100% go ahead.
I
All
know
right.
it's
Yeah.
definitely tough.
It's tough. My to wrap it up, my wish for both sides is just peace, right? To find peace with it however they can, to share his legacy in the best way that they can and know how. And we all remember him as a shining light and bright. And it's okay because sometimes people have to shine extra light that have some darkness inside them. And that's okay to share that too.
And this does not in any way dent that image for me.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is like their biggest fear was this was going to change our image of him. In fact, I think the worst part about this is how much they're fighting about it now. I
Yeah.
think it would almost be better had they just kind of let the story be told and shown that they were supportive of it no matter what. It's the infighting about it. And I'm sure if he was watching over this from the afterlife, he would be devastated knowing that
Oh, yeah.
everyone's upset about it.
Oh, yeah.
I bet he would just hope that everyone could just be okay with it right now and that she was, yes, even if she was also just making a buck from this, it's going to their kids. Like like she still also has to, support
Okay. Yeah.
their children.
100%. All right, Donna. Well, I appreciate you so much for joining me. And, you and I love deep dives. Okay. There's nothing we love
We got to
more
do more.
than deep dive. We're going to do a lot more. Let us know if there's someone else that you would like us to deep dive on. And Donna, thank you so much for giving me your time today.
I love you, Molly.
Love you. And we'll see you on the next episode of Polarized. Bye, everybody.
Bye.